Hello everyone and welcome back to WolfQuest The Lost Tales, and we are here about to start our 13th, I'm pretty sure 13th story here, and we're gonna go ahead and we'll actually be playing on challenging this time because for our 13th story of WolfQuest The Lost Tales, you guys have chosen Motomo, and I hopefully am saying his name right. So Motomo is he's an interesting wolf. He's actually not a weak wolf. If we look at his pack stats, he has 40 strength, which is some of the highest we've seen for our standard balanced wolves, and 60% stamina and 50% speed. So he's not a weak wolf. He's a fairly neutral wolf, I guess you'd say. He's fairly balanced. But he doesn't really like confrontation. He doesn't like to fight with other wolves, and he just wants to be left alone, basically. And so, throughout the course of the playthrough, he's not allowed to interact with stranger wolves in a hostile way. He's more prone to fleeing the confrontation, so if we run into a stranger wolf here that is aggressive, we have to leave. We can't deal with it. Now, I do see something else in the background there that could help us. Some of you guys may notice off to the right of the screen there. But, we're not allowed to interact with stranger wolves in a hostile way. This includes the wolves here on Amethyst Mountain, and it also includes the wolves in the Slough Creek. And so if a stranger wolf shows up, we're not allowed to attack it. We just have to leave, and unfortunately, that means that whatever happens, happens, and there's not a lot we can do about it. And so, we just have to make sure we focus on marking the territory very well so that we don't have to worry about that sort of a problem happening, because if a stranger wolf shows up, we're not allowed to chase it off. And so that could get a little bit difficult, a little bit complicated, and it's something we want to be kind of careful with. We definitely want to be mindful of that when we're doing our playthrough in Slough Creek. Now, for now, though, this first episode, we just need to focus on finding him a mate. There's the elk herd, and to do that, of course, we need experience. I must say, I'm definitely looking forward to the changes to the finding a mate system in WolfQuest 3, because I have a feeling, and we've talked a little bit about this before, but my speculation is that we may not have as much of an experience-based system, and the reason that at least not for finding a mate, the reason that I'm saying that is because if you think about the gameplay here, if all you had to do in Amethyst Mountain was find a mate, then it would be a really short playthrough. Amethyst Mountain is kind of meant as a tutorial level, I guess you could say. It's meant to teach you the ropes of it, and that's most of what you're able to do here. You can hunt, you can run around and find a mate, and then you go to Slough Creek, and that's where the real story begins. Currently, that's how the game seems to work. And so if the only objective you had was to find a mate, or maybe like in the previous version of the game, because back in the very early days, the way you would find a mate was to actually just visit all 3 territories, and I think you had to interact with a wolf in each or something like that. And so, oh goodness, my computer's doing that weird window switching thing again. Oh great, that'll be fun. But yeah, so, oh goodness, okay, there we go. Alright, but so, with that in mind, the only alternative here would be to do a system like that. There's not much gameplay after that. Once you find a mate, you go to Slough Creek, and that's where the story continues. There's really not a lot to do. And if you think about WolfQuest 3, we've already seen the very beginning of the courtship gameplay, and we've heard that there's going to be even more. And I imagine it'll be kind of a little... I still imagine there will be a tutorial element to it, in that you're going to have to learn to hunt there without the pressure of having to hunt to feed your pups. And so there's just a lot more depth that goes into even finding a mate itself. And so with that mission, I imagine it may no longer be experience-based, because if we have a multi-phase courtship mission, then that would technically, that means that by itself the Amethyst Mountain mission will no longer just be find a mate and get out. It's gonna be, there's gonna be a longer process of finding your mate, bonding with your mate, avoiding the other packs. There's gonna be a lot more to do just inherently in the playthrough of the game. And with that in mind, I have a feeling that we may see this experience-based system get phased out a little bit, because if we don't have, like, if we don't, if we have such a naturally longer and more detailed part of the game, then why would we need that prelude? I mean, especially if you consider that we've been told that everything is going to be, like, they're upping the ante, basically. They're making everything a little bit tougher, and that does include our wolf. Our wolf will be a little stronger, not quite as easy to kill. And here you take a couple kicks from the wrong prey animal, and you're dead. But in the new version of the game, everything's going to be a little bit stronger, a little bit tougher to actually kill off, and so that includes the prey, that includes the player. It's just going to be a little bit of a longer and more intricate process, it sounds like, even just to hunt. And so right now, the biggest way to earn experience here on the mountain, and in Slough Creek as well, is just to go hunting. And that does tend to encourage mass hunting, which of course we've heard many times is something that wolves do not do. They don't bulk hunt. They don't overhunt. What's the word? They don't surplus hunt. That's what I'm trying to say. Once they find food, yes, they will hunt and they will eat, but they don't kill extra to store up like we do in the game here. And so that's something that for a long time, with the way the game was set up, was fairly unavoidable. It's something that with the current setup of the game, yeah, you kind of have to surplus hunt in many ways. In fact, the game even encourages it a little bit. And you know, with the way the game is set up until this point, which again is based off of older computers, there's not a lot you can do to avoid that. The systems were very limited at the time the game came out, and they've really expanded a lot in recent years, which is why WolfQuest 3 is now a possibility. And so, unfortunately, that was one of the elements that came in from a more gamey perspective, where you couldn't really do a whole lot to avoid having that feature in there, because I mean, if you didn't allow surplus hunting, what else would there be for the player to do on a map this size? You can run around, but after a while that does start to get old. You can find a mate, but even running around with a mate starts to get old, so the main thing was hunting. And then, of course, pup rearing once Slough Creek came out. So there wasn't a lot they could do to avoid that, just because of the limitations of the game itself, and so it's perfectly understandable that that's how it's happened, but it really wasn't that realistic, and it isn't that realistic. Wolves don't surplus hunt like this. In the real world, Motomo would have hunted maybe one elk, maybe not even an elk, because he's by himself, and an elk would be very hard to take down unless he found one that happened to be particularly sickly. And so with that in mind, he probably would have found something smaller to eat, would have eaten until he was full, and then would have gone off and done his thing, and probably slept the rest of the day, honestly. Wolves sleep a lot. It'll be interesting to see if that ends up getting factored into things, and how that might get factored into things, because obviously sleeping all day isn't fun, and so that's one of those things where you would have to find a good balance of it between gameplay and, that's where you have to find a balance between gameplay and realism. So, because I mean, with the current system, if you started restricting a player from hunting elk after they killed just one, they'd have no way of earning experience. It would take forever to just get through the game, and there wouldn't be a lot left for them to do. And so that was where the balance of gameplay won out over realism. But with the new system, there will be a lot more to do, such as the fact that you're going to be actively avoiding stranger wolf packs and having to roam around in search of a mate. And so even when you hunt, it's not going to be, okay, well, what do I do now? You're going to have a clear goal in mind. You're going to have to be constantly vigilant, and there's always going to be something that you have to have on your mind and you have to be doing. How much experience do we have currently? 700, so we need one more elk down. So that's something that's going to be changing in the new version, and it'll be interesting to see what other balances may start to tip in favor of realism as the gameplay starts to be able to support a more realistic experience that's both not only realistic, but that's also fun. And it'll be really interesting to see how that works out now that that's more of a possibility. I definitely want to see, I'm looking forward to seeing that in action, because, again, right now, there's not a lot to do other than hunt on Amethyst Mountain, and I think that's going to change a lot with the coming version, and I think that's going to be something that will be very, very good for WolfQuest as a whole, and that will really, really add to the entire experience. I can't find the elk, and if you guys are wondering why I'm not using set view, it's because it's the same herd, and so, unfortunately, the set spokes just despawn after a while. which is another thing I'm looking forward to. I'm looking forward to the new scent system because since we no longer have elk herds and other animals spawning in and out as needed, it means there will always be persistent traces of an animal if you know where to sniff around for them, and so it'll make things easier in a way, but also harder in a way. You'll also have to learn the habits of an animal to know kind of where it's going to hang out to either find or avoid it. So, for example, we've seen how the elk will tend to favor certain areas, and with that in mind, if you're going to be looking for an elk, you're going to want to know where those areas are. And you're going to want to have some working knowledge of where the animal likes to hang out, because yes, you're going to be having to rely on scent view in order to find them a lot more than we already are, but, oh, that's a cougar. I was like, what is that? Well, if we manage to chase off this cougar too, ow, and not that, okay, get out of here, cougar, get out of here, there we go. That actually gave us the experience we needed. So that's good. So Motomo has actually finished his mission remarkably fast here. Kind of surprising. I didn't expect that. But now we have to go find a mate. And honestly, I know we head up to this pack a lot. I feel like we probably will head up there. Motomo is the son of Night, I believe. And so we probably will avoid Druid territory too. Just because, and we don't send a lot of our wolves to Druid territory because the Druids are known for being particularly fierce, and particularly, they're very strong wolves. They have quite the reputation surrounding them, and it's not earned without cause. So, that's something that we want to keep in mind, even as we're navigating around here. We don't want to get tangled up with them if we can at all help it. And it's kind of interesting too because I've actually been doing some research on the geography of Yellowstone, and so the Druid pack was actually named, or the full name is the Druid Peak pack, and it's named after Druid Peak, which is right around in this area. I believe it is actually just across the valley there. I think it's actually one of those peaks you can see in the skybox. And so that's where the Druid pack comes from. And actually, let me get up a little bit higher and turn around and show you guys this. So actually, relative to this, assuming I'm orienting myself correctly, so down that way we have the Lamar Valley, and then we have another ridge up there. Nope, that doesn't help. So then we have another ridge off in the distance there, and actually over that ridge is where Slough Creek is. It's off past those hills somewhere. Past the Lamar Valley. It's like basically a ridge over, so that's where you guys, and that's where we end up traveling, is we would go down through the Lamar Valley and then just right over those hills and into Slough Creek. And that's basically how it works out, and that's why we see both the Druid pack and the Slough pack in the creek area as well currently, because those ranges would have been right there. And naturally, you know, the Slough pack is probably named after, I imagine it's named after Slough Creek itself, and then the Druid pack is named after Druid Peak. And so that's kind of, I can't show it too well in the WolfQuest world here because we're limited to the skyboxes and not a very good camera setup for looking around at the scenery. But at some point I do want to try and figure out a way of showing that a little bit more, because it's something I've been researching and it's been very interesting to see. And we've actually found a dispersal female. Man, Motomo, are you just destined to be fast? Because that's what it looks like. So, we have a dispersal female. She says she's unsure about this. Honestly, I like her. I'm not too picky when it comes to mates, honestly. I mean, right now, there's not a lot to be picky about. They all basically are the same, just different in coat color, which is another thing I'm happy will be changing. But, you know, I feel like kind of assessing the wolf's personality that we're playing as, I feel like Motomo is a calm wolf. He doesn't like conflict, but he's also fairly easygoing. And so I think he would probably not be overly choosy here unless he ran into a particularly aggressive mate or something, which I don't even think is a thing at this point. But yeah, so it's kind of, it'll be interesting to see how that'll change the gameplay, because there'll be a lot more to actually look at when it comes to finding a mate, rather than just fur color, because right now that's really the only thing that matters in the game. That's really the only part of this that is a deciding factor in choosing a mate right now. And sometimes, you know, sometimes when we go into an encounter, I'll kind of go off a gut reaction of how I feel the wolf would react. I mean, we had Nova, who was very, very picky, and who kept running off a while back, and that was kind of just, I did not get the sense that he was going to want to choose a mate just then. But we're actually going to go ahead and we're going to name her Anita, which means bear. So we'll send these two off to Slough Creek. I think we have... Let's at least get them over there, and then we'll kind of take a look and see. Hopefully Nita won't scare me quite as much as, which mate was it? It was Scorpio's mate. Scorpio's mate kept startling me, because she had the same fur color. That was, yeah, Pegasi. She had that reddish fur color, didn't she? And I get everybody mixed up in Lost Tales because we have such a short time with them, but I think she was the one who kept scaring me because she would walk up across or behind us and just pop out of nowhere, and I thought she was a coyote. And that has happened to me before, even in Slough Creek, where we've had a coyote kind of colored mate. Is that another cougar? That was another cougar. Where'd it go? Oh, it's right up there. Okay. We're gonna chase it down if we can. Oh my goodness, Nina, watch out. Let's see if we can take this guy down, or at least give him a bit of a bite and chase him off, hopefully. If we're careful, maybe. He's pretty fast. The cougars are quite quick. You have to be able to, like that. That's what's hard about them, is that you have to make those really sharp turns, and again, we talked about that a lot with Trot. That's hard to do in the current version of the game. Hopefully that'll be a little bit, hopefully it'll be a little easier to maneuver in the next version, but we'll see. But yeah, so at some point I would like to do something to kind of show the geography more, because it has been really interesting to me to learn about it, but I never really understood where those were relative to each other. And I actually went, so I went to Yellowstone a number of years back now. It was probably 6 years, I want to say, 5 to 6 years back. We actually drove through Yellowstone on a family road trip, and we almost got to go hiking at Slough Creek, but there was a thunderstorm, and so I was a little bit bummed out by that. I was looking at the scenery, and it definitely does look like this is how it, like, the game represents the look of the scenery of Yellowstone very, very well, but you know, these places, the actual places in the game are off trail, and so you're not necessarily just going to be right there, and so you're not necessarily going to be recognizing all the landmarks, and so I knew we were in this region, but I wasn't sure exactly where, and so it was kind of interesting. Oh my goodness, okay, I don't think we're going to catch this cougar. We're just going to leave it alone. I was hoping for a little extra experience there, but no such luck. But yeah, so I knew we were in this area, but I didn't really know where we were relative to it, and I didn't really get a good sense, and I've never really had a good sense for where these regions are relative to each other in Yellowstone. And so I think in one of the blog posts, the WolfQuest team actually talked about where these regions are relative to each other. But I've been flying around in Google Earth and kind of taking a closer look at this, and it really has given me a lot better of a perspective as to where things are. So I'll go ahead and show. We can run up to the cliffs on our way over, because we just got to get them to the Slough Creek portal right now. And I say Slough Creek. I've heard it says Slough Creek. I'm not sure which it is. I'm probably going to keep saying Slough, unless that's actually truly wrong, in which case I will try to change, and it'll probably take me a while. But I think it's one of those things where it can be pronounced either way, as far as I'm aware. So if we head up to the cliffs here, this is the cliffs on the slope of Amethyst Mountain. The actual full mountain is behind us. And so if we go up here, then if we look back, that's Amethyst Mountain back there. This is and this whole thing is part of Specimen Ridge, as the WolfQuest team pointed out in their video. And so the Amethyst Mountain map, this is just the very bottom of the slope of Amethyst Mountain, really. I think it goes up even higher than that, and there's more slopes. But down here, you can actually see the Lamar Valley, and Lamar Valley is where that river is, and then beyond those hills, roughly, is where Slough Creek is. And so you can kind of imagine, I think it even says in the prologue for Slough Creek, where it has the little pop-up, that you spent the winter down in Lamar Valley. And I think that would be down there by the river, and then just head right over those hills and you hit Slough Creek. I'm not sure exactly where on the skybox relative to a real world, and if you look at this, it's a little bit tilted. The map is actually tilted at a 45-degree angle, so north is towards the... I turned the entirely wrong way. North is towards the corner of the map. So, it's kind of interesting, but yeah, I just found that pretty fascinating to finally get to study the geography and to kind of figure out how this all fits together. And it'll be interesting to see where the Towerfall map ends up being. Again, they showed the rough location, but it really is interesting to get it in there and to do a flyover. You can even do it in Google Maps if you have that and you go to Yellowstone. You can find the different peaks and use them to kind of figure out where you're going. But anyway, we're going to send these two down this way, and next episode we'll be picking up in Slough Creek, and starting to get ready to raise pups. We'll have to do our winter hunt, and we'll see how that ends up going. Hopefully it will not be too difficult. We're only playing on challenging, but we also have to plan so that we don't have to hunt at all, because if we have to hunt, there's a good chance that we'll have our territory drop low enough to have a stranger wolf spawn, and again, there's nothing we can do about that. We just have to let what happens happens, and I don't really want to do that because I don't want to lose a pup and I don't want to fail a challenge. So, we're going to have these guys head off to Slough Creek, and alright, we'll stay on Amethyst Mountain for now, so next episode we'll be picking up with them in the creek area. So thank you guys so much for watching. I hope you've enjoyed the episode. Don't forget to like and subscribe, and I will see you guys next time. But until then, this is Jay, over and out.